born into power. On June 14, 1946, in the borough of Queens, New York, a boy was born to Fred and Mary Ann Trump, a boy who would one day become the most polarizing U.S. president in modern history. His name was Donald John Trump. But this wasn't a tale of humble beginnings. His father, Fred Trump, was already a multi-millionaire real estate developer, building vast swaths of post-WWI housing for middle-class families across Brooklyn and Queens. Fred had built his empire during the Great Depression and World War II, benefiting from government subsidies and his uncanny ability to navigate regulations. Donald was the fourth of 5 siblings, and from an early age, he stood out. He was brash, aggressive, and craved attention. Teachers at the Q Forest School described him as energetic to the point of disruption. At age 13, fearing his behavior was out of control, Fred sent Donald to the New York Military Academy, a move that would forever alter his personality. There, young Trump learned discipline, hierarchy, and the optics of uniformed dominance. He thrived in this environment not academically, but as a force of presence. He became a captain, led marching drills, and honed his skills as a showman in a system built on control. To a family business with sharp elbows. After high school, Trump attended Fordham University for 2 years before transferring to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Though he claims to have graduated at the top of his class, records contradict that, and classmates remember him as reserved and unremarkable. But Donald didn't come for the academics. He came to study real estate finance, the family trade. Fred Trump was grooming his son to take over. But Donald had bigger ambitions. He wasn't interested in middle-class housing. He wanted skyline-defining towers and Manhattan prestige. In 1971, at the age of 25, he was given control of Elizabeth Trump's son, which he quickly renamed the Trump Organization. That rebrand wasn't just cosmetic. It was the beginning of a public relations empire, one that would market not just buildings but Donald himself. The Trump Tower gamble. By the late 1970s, New York was reeling from crime, bankruptcy, and urban decay. But Donald Trump saw opportunity. He envisioned a luxurious skyscraper on Fifth Avenue, the ultimate symbol of wealth and dominance. That vision became Trump Tower, completed in 1983. It wasn't just a building, it was a statement. The interiors gleamed with pink marble, brass, and waterfalls, while the exterior's dark glass facade screamed power. Trump used every trick in the book, political connections, tax breaks, and media manipulation to get the tower built. He even demolished a historic Art Deco building and used undocumented workers, later denying responsibility. But it worked. Trump Tower wasn't just successful, it became the epicenter of the Trump mythos, the glamorous headquarters of a man who sold wealth as if it were a product, and Trump himself became the brand. He began appearing in tabloids, attending red carpet events, and crafting a public persona as a real estate genius despite mounting debts and shaky numbers. Manhattan, money, and manipulation. Trump's next move was the Grand Hyatt Hotel, a decaying property he revived through a risky public-private deal that became a model of his wheeling-dealing approach. He used press leaks, ghost-written articles, and brash predictions to shape perception. Journalists like Wayne Barrett tried to expose inconsistencies and exaggerations in Trump's image, but it didn't matter. Trump was becoming untouchable not because he was flawless, but because he was fascinating. He knew the truth didn't matter if you dominated the narrative. By the mid-1980s, Donald Trump's name was on hotels, casinos, yachts, and even an ill-fated airline. He flaunted wealth, dated supermodels, and wrote The Art of the Deal, a ghost-written bestseller that sold the Trump myth to millions of Americans. But behind the scenes, cracks were forming. The Showman President, 2016, and the Road to Power, the escalator moment. It was June 16, 2015, when Donald J. Trump, in a moment that would change world history, descended the golden escalator of Trump Tower to declare his candidacy for the President of the United States. Behind him stood Melania, quiet and poised. Around him, paid actors held signs and cheered. But Trump wasn't interested in appearances, he wanted shock value. In his announcement speech, Trump made headlines instantly. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people. It was blatantly racist, inflammatory, and designed to outrage, and it worked. He instantly dominated news cycles. Networks gave him millions of dollars of free coverage. The more offensive he became, the more attention he received. The pundits dismissed him. The Republican establishment laughed. They didn't realize he was building a movement. The populist playbook. Trump's campaign was unlike anything American politics had ever seen. He mocked war heroes like John McCain, insulted journalists, demeaned women, and called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. In any other election, any one of these would have been career-ending. But Trump thrived on chaos. He connected with disillusioned voters who felt ignored by Washington elites. His rallies were emotional spectacles filled with "lock her up," "build that wall," and patriotic symbolism. His audience wasn't looking for policy, they wanted a fighter, someone who spoke the raw, unfiltered frustrations of the American underbelly. And Trump gave them that with no filter. He called himself a very stable genius, bragged about his wealth, and repeatedly lied with confidence. Fact checkers were overwhelmed. He made over 30 false or misleading statements during his presidency, but his base didn't care. They weren't voting for facts, they were voting for rebellion, taking down the GOP giants. The Republican primaries were a war zone. Trump insulted opponents with nicknames: Lean Ted Cruz, Low Energy Jeb Bush, Little Marco Rubio, Crazy Megyn Kelly. His strategy was ruthless: dominate headlines, shame opponents, never apologize. By March 2016, Trump had taken over the Republican Party. GOP leaders like Mitt Romney begged the party to stop him, but it was too late. The Republican base had turned against its own establishment, and Trump was their voice. He won the nomination, and now he faced Hillary Clinton, the most politically experienced woman in US history. Trump versus Clinton, the 2016 shockwave. The 2016 general election was an earthquake. Clinton ran a traditional campaign with celebrities, policy plans, and polished speeches. Trump ran on emotion, rage, and division. He brought up Bill Clinton scandals. He accused Hillary of criminal corruption. He threatened to jail her. He courted Russian trolls, WikiLeaks, and an army of Facebook misinformation campaigns, whether knowingly or not. When the Access Hollywood tape dropped where Trump bragged about grabbing women by the PY, everyone assumed it was over. But Trump didn't quit. He doubled down, dismissed it as locker room talk, and even brought Bill Clinton's accusers to the next debate. His base loved the unapologetic defiance. And then, on November 8, 2016, the world gasped. Trump won. Despite losing the popular vote by nearly 3 million, he won the Electoral College, shocking pollsters, analysts, and even his own staff. A man with no political experience, dozens of lawsuits, and a mountain of scandals had just become the 45th president of the United States. Chaos in the White House. Trump's presidency began with lies about the inauguration crowd size. It was a preview of what was to come: alternative facts, media wars, and governing by tweet. His cabinet was a revolving door. In the first year alone, top officials like Michael Flynn, Sean Spicer, and Steve Bannon were fired or resigned. Trump demanded loyalty over competence. Agencies were gutted, scientists were ignored, advisors lived in fear of being shamed online. His style of governance was chaotic, reactive, and impulsive. He praised dictators, mocked allies, and refused to read briefings. Intelligence officials warned him that Russia had interfered in the 2016 election. Trump denied it, even siding with Vladimir Putin over US intelligence in Helsinki. President Putin says it's not Russia. I don't see any reason why it would be. That moment shocked America's national security community. But Trump's base stood by him. Impeachment 1. In 2019, Trump was caught pressuring Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden, his likely 2020 opponent. A whistleblower sounded the alarm. The House of Representatives launched an impeachment inquiry. The evidence was clear. Trump had withheld military aid from Ukraine to extract political dirt on an opponent. He became only the third US president in history to be impeached, but in the Senate, where Republicans held power, he was acquitted. His reaction? "I've done nothing wrong. This was a hoax, total exoneration." It became a pattern. Every scandal was a hoax. Every investigation was a witch hunt. Every critic was the enemy. And it was working. A nation divided. As Trump barreled into 2020, he seemed untouchable, but three disasters would redefine his legacy. 1. COVID-19 pandemic. Trump downplayed the virus. It's going to disappear like a miracle. He ignored experts, mocked masks, pushed unproven drugs, and held super spreader rallies. Over 1 million Americans died, and Trump still insisted he did a tremendous job. 2. George Floyd protests. After the police killing of George Floyd, America erupted in protest. Trump responded with militarization, threats of violence, and Bible photo ops. He called protesters thugs and refused to acknowledge systemic racism. 3. The 2020 election. Facing Joe Biden, Trump again ran on division. When he lost, he refused to concede. He spread lies about election fraud, sued states, and pressured officials. And then came January 6, 2021. As Congress met to certify the 2020 election, a mob inflamed by Trump's rhetoric stormed the Capitol building. 5 people died. The world watched in horror. Trump was impeached a second time, this time for inciting insurrection. But again, the Senate refused to convict. Trump had shattered every political norm, incited violence against democracy, and still escaped punishment. But the storm was far from over. Indictments, obsession, and the making of a movement. The fall from power. After the January 6th attack, America had crossed a red line. Trump had stoked the flames of insurrection, and many believed he had finally gone too far. But in Trump's world, the line between downfall and defiance is thin. He left office on January 20, 2021, refusing to attend the inauguration of Joe Biden, breaking a 150-year American tradition of peaceful transition. Even as he boarded Air Force One for the final time, Trump told supporters, "We will be back in some form." Most thought it was a bluff, but Trump was just getting started. Mar-a-Lago exile. Trump settled in Mar-a-Lago, his resort-turned political bunker in Palm Beach, Florida. There, surrounded by loyalists, he continued to push the narrative that the 2020 election was stolen. He called it the big lie, and it became the cornerstone of a new Republican identity. Millions of Americans believed it, despite zero evidence. Dozens of court cases were dismissed. Recounts confirmed Biden's win. Yet, Trump's followers and many Republican lawmakers parroted the conspiracy. Trump wasn't just a former president. He had become a political cult figure. The legal avalanche. Trump's post-presidency has been haunted by a historic flood of legal trouble, the kind no other US president has ever faced. Let's break them down. 1. Hush money case Stormy Daniels. In 2023, Trump was indicted in New York for falsifying business records related to a hush money payment to adult film actress Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. It made him the first former president in US history to face criminal charges. 2. Classified documents case. In 2022, the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago and found boxes of highly classified documents, including nuclear secrets. Trump had refused to return them after leaving office. He was charged with obstruction of justice, mishandling national defense information, and conspiracy. 3. Georgia election interference. A grand jury in Georgia indicted Trump and 18 others, including Rudy Giuliani, for trying to overturn the 2020 election results in that state. Evidence included a phone call where Trump told the Georgia Secretary of State, "I just want to find 11,780 votes. -4. Federal election subversion case. In 2023, Trump was federally indicted for conspiring to defraud the US, obstructing Congress, and spreading false claims that led to the January 6 riot. This was the biggest case of all, directly tied to undermining democracy. As of 2025, Trump faces 91 felony counts across 4 criminal cases. If convicted, he could face hundreds of years in prison. But here's the twist. The indicted kingmaker, Every indictment, every scandal, every courtroom appearance, instead of weakening Trump, made him stronger among his base. Mugshots became merchandise. Court dates became campaign rallies. Trump cast himself as a martyr, a victim of a corrupt deep state. In his own words, "They're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way." Republicans running against him in 2024 barely dared to criticize him even as he was facing criminal trial. His grip on the GOP was absolute. By the time of the 2024 Republican primaries, Trump was again the frontrunner, defeating challengers like Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley with ease. America watched in disbelief. Could a man under 4 indictments who tried to overturn an election and incited insurrection actually run for president again? The 2024 rematch. As 2024 heated up, the unthinkable was happening. Trump versus Biden again. But this time, Trump's campaign was like nothing before. He promised mass deportations, the weaponization of the Justice Department, revenge against political enemies, mass pardons for January 6 rioters. He called it retribution. Critics called it fascism. Democracy scholars warned, if Trump wins again, it could be the end of American democracy as we know it. The country became more divided than ever. Armed militias trained in the woods. Election workers were threatened. Conspiracy theories exploded. And Trump once again took the center of the stage, basking in the chaos he helped create. Cult or candidate? Donald Trump was no longer just a politician. He was a brand, a belief system, and a symbol for millions who felt betrayed by institutions. To his followers, he was the last man standing between them and tyranny. To his critics, he was the greatest internal threat America had ever faced. Even among conservatives, many privately feared his return. But few had the courage to oppose him publicly because Trump had redefined the Republican Party in his own image. He didn't need facts. He didn't need policies. He had a movement loyal, angry, and ready to fight. The legacy question. So, what is Donald Trump's legacy? A real estate tycoon who rose from reality TV to the presidency. A political wrecking ball who broke every rule. A showman who turned outrage into power. A twice impeached, 4 times indicted figure who might still return to the White House. For some, he is a hero. For others, a tyrant. But one thing is undeniable. Donald J. Trump changed American politics forever. He shattered the old system. He showed that facts don't matter as much as emotion. And he revealed just how fragile democracy can be when pushed to its limits. The Trump story isn't over. It's unfolding in real time in courtrooms, campaign trails, and in the minds of millions. Whether he returns to power or falls into infamy, history will remember him not just for what he did, but for what he revealed about America.